Is Supercell going to kill Clash Mini? What is preventing the game from going global? If it does go global, when will it happen? Well, we don't know for sure. In fact, I don't think Supercell knows for sure. Their last game to launch globally was Brawl Stars back in December of 2018, and since then they've killed 4 games: Rush Wars, Heyday Pop, Clash Quest, and they recently just killed Everdale. And now a lot of people are wondering if Clash Mini even has what it takes, or if it will be the next game added to a long list of games that Supercell just didn't think was good enough. Now, gotta be honest, after playing Rush Wars, Heyday Pop, Clash Quest, and Everdale, each of them for about an hour, I was fairly confident that they would not reach Supercell's high standards without completely rechanging the game in some way or another. I predicted that each of them would get killed, and I also predicted that Brawl Stars would get launched globally, even though I knew that they had a history of killing games at that point. In other words, I have a 100% success rate at predicting which games have what it takes and which ones don't. In this video, I'm going to talk about what I think is holding Clash Mini back from going global, why I think it will go global, and most importantly, how long I think it will take for that to happen. But before that, I want to give a huge thank you to Mana Banking for sponsoring this video. Click the link below to sign up, and seriously, you guys are going to want to check this out. This is a Visa debit card from Mana Banking, and if you are a gamer, this is really worth looking into. And if you're not a gamer, I don't know what you're doing here. You can sign up for Mana without spending a single cent, but what I'm most excited for is the Mana Pro card that comes with a ton of benefits. Mana accounts are even FDIC insured. Let me show you how to use it. You can sign up for Mana completely for free by clicking the link below, and after signing up, you'll receive one of these Visa debit cards in the mail. You'll then be able to deposit money into that card using the Mana app, and from there, you can use that card to purchase anything, anywhere that Visa is accepted. And for everything you purchase with your Mana card, you'll then score points, which you can then use to purchase thousands of video games, gift cards, and more things that gamers like us love. But the benefits of being a gamer doesn't stop there. You'll receive double the points for purchases you make on gaming products included in the Mana shop, and you'll receive triple the points for certain gaming and entertainment subscriptions. Mana will give you even more points every month for linking your Mana account to some of your favorite games, including Brawl Stars. This is seriously insane. Like, tons of these products and subscriptions are things I'm already regularly paying for, so like, we might as well get something for it, right? Once again, a huge thank you to Mana Banking for sponsoring this video and supporting gamers like us. We are coming up on Clash Mini's 1-year anniversary on November 8th. When the game first came out, it didn't take long for me to feel confident in predicting that the game would actually go global eventually. I didn't think the game was ready immediately, but I did think that eventually the game would reach global. The main reason for this is because, in my opinion, the core gameplay loop is actually very fun and very satisfying, and stays fun for a long period of time. It may not be like as live and intense as Brawl Stars or require perfect timing like Clash Royale, but the gameplay is fun, and it doesn't take too long to realize that your actions do have a big impact on battle, and there's a lot of strategy involved with the game, which that's a caveat. I'll add that later. He'll talk about why. With that being said, Clash Mini is by no means perfect, otherwise it would already be global. So we're going to talk about 3 major issues holding Clash Mini back from going global, and then we'll talk about how long I think it's going to take before the game is ready for it. One of the biggest issues that Clash Mini has is that players, when they first download it and they start playing it, they feel like it's very luck-based when they start playing, right? To a lot of new players, the minis that you use or how you place them feels like it has little to no impact on the outcome of the match. This isn't true, but it does feel like that when you first start playing out, especially when you face off against minis like the Spear Goblin, which do have like a very like luck factor to it, right? Either it is lined up perfectly or you're playing mind games correctly with your opponent and he misses your attacks. Like there's some things that you can do. You can shield minis with it, and you can also move minis in like a spear type pattern so that it's less likely that the Spear Goblin will actually hit one of your minis, but it feels very unfair to new players. Now, there's some simple things that Clash Mini could do to try and like make this a little bit easier for new players. Specifically, they could make it so the Spear Goblin doesn't get released until later into the game, or that you don't have a starting deck with a Spear Goblin, even though I think it's one of the really best minis to actually teach players how to play the game, but you get the idea. But even more concerning than that is that like players that have a very strategic mind will get into Clash Mini and feel like the strategy is very limited limited because Clash Mini actually does a very poor job at explaining what I think is the most exciting strategic feature in the game. You see, when you upgrade a mini, you can just drag a mini duplicate onto the field and it will automatically gain abilities in a specific order. The game literally teaches you to drag duplicates onto the board to upgrade them in its tutorial. So a lot of players think that if you want a mini's third upgrade ability, you have to upgrade that mini 3 times. But experienced Clash Mini players will tell you that this is not the case. If you have a mini on the field and a duplicate in your hand, you can tap on the mini in your hand and then select the specific ability that you want to upgrade it to. So if all you want is the third ability on a mini, all you have to do is upgrade it once and select that third ability. This has a huge impact on the way you play, adds a ton of strategic depth to the game, and that's because there's a lot of different abilities that counter different enemies. So even if you start a match against an enemy with minis that you might think would counter your deck, if you build a good deck, you'll have different answers to different minis because of the way that not only you position your minis, but also which upgrades you select. And the game does very little to teach you that this is even an option, which is a huge fail in my opinion, because people that are very strategic minded and want a lot of depth think that the game is very shallow. Now, Clash Mini has made some improvements to teach these things to new players, and I really love their PvE stuff that they have. It's a great way to get new players onboarded, but I still see people asking how to change the upgrade order for the different abilities all the time on the Clash Mini subreddit and on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, it's still pretty obvious that players don't know how to do this, and I think it's hurting the game's potential because players first download the game and they think it's shallow and random, and it's not. One of the best ways Clash Mini can improve this is just by working on their tutorial before the game goes global, or maybe they could just make it so that it's somehow clearer and easier for players to like pick up on the fact that they can choose which abilities are actually going to be applied to their mini when they upgrade it. They could make it really obvious by making it so that when you go to upgrade a mini, it doesn't just automatically happen. Instead, a mini or a menu would pop up and then you select which ability you want it to. Maybe they could do that, or maybe they just revamp the tutorial. It's seriously like a small thing. I don't think it would take too much developer time for them to fix this issue, but I do think it would have a big impact on the game. But there's an even bigger reason why people will play Clash Mini and then quit, and that is the progression system. To be completely candid, the progression system just is not satisfying in Clash Mini. It is better than it has been in the past, but I think that Clash Mini deserves a better progression system. The first issue that the game faced was that it was just too hard to upgrade heroes, and the stronger hero abilities were locked behind level 10, which took way too long to reach. It was essentially maxing out a hero, so the game actually felt very pay to win at first, which is not good. They did actually improve things though. They buffed the rate that players get hero fragments and made it easier for players to actually upgrade their heroes, and they also moved their most strongest ability from power 10 down to power 8, which is much more reasonable for players to actually reach. So Clash Mini actually has already improved this a lot, but another big issue is that it's all a little bit too random. All the hero fragments that you get are essentially split between all of your heroes. So if you are lucky enough to get a brand new hero, that means that it will just take that much longer for you to upgrade all of the heroes that you already had to meaningful and competitive levels. Honestly, I think a better progression system would be if it was actually harder for you to unlock heroes at all, and so that you can then put all of your progression towards like a specific hero and you actually get them to a competitive level. This would make it easier for players to like see the strategy that is involved with the game and reach that competitive level and make more competitive decks. So that's a big issue with the hero progression, but there's also issues with the mini progression. And maybe some people will disagree with me, but I feel like the mini progression is almost too fast, right? Like you get all of the minis, and well, anyway, I'll explain this, okay? It's good in the short run for it to be really fast, but in the long run, it's not very, it doesn't feel very satisfying because you get all of them and each mini doesn't really feel so special because you can upgrade and unlock them so quickly. And let me explain this for players that have not played this. Essentially, the game allows for you to collect every mini and max them out, basically every 2 to 3 month season. Not everybody will max out all the minis, but the most active players will. Once the season is over, you then have the option to trade in your collection of minis for hero fragments. And hero fragments, to be fair, are the long-term progression of Clash Mini. That's like what you want in the long run. But even though you gain a lot of progression towards your heroes, you lose like most of the minis that you spent collecting throughout the entire season. And honestly, I feel like it's pretty disheartening. And even though you do gain a few levels for your heroes, I don't think that it feels worth it because your mini collection just got reset, essentially. Now, I didn't want to say anything negative about this system before I actually experienced it, because on paper, the mini progression system and the reset does make a lot of sense. Hero progression is the limiting rate anyway, and players can always just regain the minis that they lost. Plus, it forces players to be really creative with the minis that they have at the beginning of each reset. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna play through this a few times before I actually want to share my opinion on it, and I did so, and my opinion hasn't actually changed very much. In my opinion, as a player, it just doesn't feel fun, even though it does look good on paper. Honestly, I would much rather have it be way more difficult for you to unlock and upgrade minis in the first place, but have that progression actually be permanent. So like, you don't collect all of the minis right at the very beginning. In fact, they could even have a Clash Royale based progression system where there are specific minis that they will unlock as you go throughout the game, and then you can upgrade those minis as you go. Like, that actually sounds a lot more satisfying and fun to me. It's worked for Clash Royale. I feel like it could work very well for Clash Mini. Luckily, it sounds like the developers are already very aware of this and they're planning on fixing it. Maybe not exactly how I suggested it, but in the Small Talk episode 6, they let us know that they are doing a progression rework to the heroes and the minis. They didn't want to call it Clash Mini 2.0, but like really close to it, right? It's going to be basically completely different than it has been in the past. Their goal is to give players more choices and freedom to customize progression how they want to, so that we can focus on upgrading one hero at a time, or focus our efforts on our minis. We don't know exactly what's coming in this update, but they're planning on reworking levels, abilities, upgrades, and progression in general. At least that's what I gathered from watching the video. I actually don't have any insider information. That's just what I understand. They also said that they want the minis to feel a little bit more like collectibles in the game. So they plan on reworking the game economy somehow, and maybe minis will have their own little levels just like the heroes will, and it'll be harder to upgrade them or unlock them in the first place, but then you have to spend more time upgrading them, just like I suggested. If you'd like more information on this, I will let you know on this channel as soon as I can, so make sure you guys subscribe so that you don't miss it. In my opinion, the progression system is the biggest thing holding Clash Mini back from a global release. So if the rework is good, I honestly don't think the global will be too far behind. But I do think there's a third issue with Clash Mini that should be addressed, or at least considered before the game should go global, or be implemented soon after the game goes global. Supercell's goal for every game that they release globally is directly tied to their mission statement. In order for a game to go global, it needs to be a great game that as many people will play as long as possible, or play for years and will remember forever. I said near the beginning of this video that I think that the core gameplay loop is actually really fun, and I stand by that. I really like the gameplay loop of Clash Mini, like actually getting to them, not the progression or anything like that, but just like playing the game, the actual matches, the actual gameplay part. That's really fun. But I do kind of view it how I do to Brawl Stars. Brawl Stars has many different game modes. I could play Gem Grab quite a bit, but Gem Grab itself is not enough to keep me playing for years, and I certainly wouldn't remember Gem Grab forever if it weren't for all the other game modes. The same is true for Showdown. It's not enough by itself. Brawl Ball is not enough by itself, but luckily, Brawl Stars has 19 different game modes between all of its permanent modes, temporary modes, and special event modes. They also have game modes that they've introduced into the game, completely reworked, or even just gotten rid of because people didn't like it. On top of that, they also have a bunch of special challenges that come up every now and then. It also has Power League for highly competitive players, Club League for social players, and Map Maker for creative players, or players that just want to mess around. They're also always adding new game modes all the time to the game, and I think that that is really great because they take the same core gameplay loop of playing Brawl Stars, a top-down 3v3 shooter, and they apply it to a lot of different scenarios. Now, I'm not saying that Clash Mini needs 19 game modes before it can go global. We're comparing a global game to a beta game. That's not really fair. And I'm not even necessarily saying that Clash Mini needs to have new game modes before they can go global, but I would hope that they would plan on releasing these new game modes, or some new game modes, very soon after global, if not before. Because the Clash Mini combat system is really awesome, and there's so many different things that they could do, and they've barely scratched the surface. Essentially what they did is they took like the traditional auto battler or auto chess type of game mode and they simplified it and made it really awesome, but they could do so much more. I would love a double elixir mode or a best of 5 mode so that you can actually upgrade more minis or max them out. Honestly, like 3-starring minis is one of the most satisfying aspects of the game, and you can't even completely max out a full deck of 2 elixir minis in either of the game modes that are currently in the game. So like more elixir rounds would be so much fun. I would also love a 4-player draft format where you take turns selecting heroes and minis and then you play each of the other players twice. The player with the most points at the end would win, the one with the least would lose, and ties would be broken by another round. So like that would be like 7 total possible rounds. I'd also like a not so mini game mode where the board is 2 or 3 tiles wider in every direction and you have like 2 or 3 additional minis in your deck. Okay, there's so many things they could do. I'd like a Clash Royale mode where each team has a tower to protect that also fires enemy minis, and you could play multiple rounds until one of you defeats the enemy tower. I'd also like a Clash of Clans PvE mode where you try to defeat various defenses, which is honestly kind of like what they actually added in with their recent PvE update, which is actually a lot of fun. But on top of all of that, there's a lot of different games they could do, and I would also like special challenges like the 12-win challenges in Brawl Stars and Clash Royale, or other special events, or other PvP clan wars or something like that. There's a lot of things they could do. Now, I think the Clash Mini team actually has recognized this, and they've added a lot of PvE content into the game that is, personally, I think fantastic. I think it's phenomenal. I'd love to see them add more, maybe even more difficult challenges. But there's so many different ways they could add on to the PvP game currently by adding new modes, and I think that would really help the game thrive. So those are the 3 major issues that I think are holding Clash Mini back from going global. How long will it take then for them to improve these things and then go global? Well, the most important thing that they should do is rework the progression system. They've already announced they're going to be doing that. They also said the progression rework would be shortly delayed after the 1-year anniversary. So I'm guessing either late November or December, possibly January at the latest, although I think that they would want to try and hit that before December. I don't know. The second most important thing is improving the onboarding of new players and teaching them how to select which minis got upgraded so they understand the strategic depth that the game has to offer. I also think they could do the opposite, where they improve the tutorial or the onboarding process so that the game feels more simple and easy to understand for players that might not be familiar with the Clash universe or might not be familiar with auto battlers. I don't think that reworking the tutorial would take too long unless they completely reworked it from scratch, but like I do think it's a priority though. I really do. I think a lot of games fail to produce some type of a progression system early on that makes strategic players feel like they're getting something out of it, and also not like it's too difficult to understand for new players. If they could do that though, I don't know how long it takes to do a tutorial, but like maybe a month, or maybe they just add it on top of another update. So maybe they do it along with like a new game mode update or something like that. Either way, that is essential before the game goes global, in my opinion. So then we have new game modes, which could take 2 to 3 months to add new game modes while also improving the tutorial. And so like I could see them essentially being ready by like March 2023 at the earliest, but all that depends on how the community responds to the progression rework. If the progression rework is awesome, then I think that a release in March or April is actually pretty realistic. Chances are though that they'll need to do a little bit of tweaking, especially from the progression and economy side of things. So maybe April or May, which actually falls pretty much in line with the 1.5 years that Brawl Stars was in beta for. I hope that it doesn't take that long, but if I'm being realistic, I think that that's what it's going to take. At the very earliest, I think we could see a progression rework happen in November, and then if the feedback is positive, they could plan for a global release in February or March and release new game modes with an improved tutorial along with global, or game modes after global. But that might be rushing things. I don't know. We'll see. And then again, they may just end up killing Clash Mini like they've done with a lot of other games in the past. I don't think that will happen, but no matter what, I will be covering it right here on this channel. So make sure you guys subscribe to get any juicy news on the game, or to just watch my other Clash Mini content I've got right there. For now, this is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in Clash Mini.